Hi, I'm your host, Marsha Florence, for Just Ask. Today's show is Michigan Paralyzed Veterans of America. Hurry back and join us. Hi, I'm your host, Marsha Florence, with Just Ask. Today's show, ladies and gentlemen, is Michigan Paralyzed Veterans of America, and we have the executive director himself, Mike Harris. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, good morning to you. It's good seeing you again.
Oh, please, the pleasure is mine. Good. Now, Mike, you know what? With all these changes coming about in this last couple of years with the servicemen and ladies coming home, wanted to find out about some services that are available through Paralyzed Veterans of America, and start off with exactly your role first, and then give us a brief oversight of what is PVA.
Well, I'll get into what PVA is about. The Paralyzed Veterans of America was formed in 1946 after World War II. It was really 2,500 veterans coming back from World War II. They didn't really have a voice, so they decided to band together and create PVA. And their main issue back then was housing, accessible housing. The way the government looked at it, they either put the spinal cord injured veteran in a VA facility where he would live for the rest of his life, or a nursing home. And they even did this if the person was married and had children. So they decided they wanted a home out in the community, so they could live like everyone else. In order to do that, they needed a housing grant so they could make the home accessible for someone in a wheelchair. 4 years later, President Truman signed legislation that created the housing grant, and as they say, the rest is history. We've been involved just about in every major civil rights law. We have 34 chapters throughout the United States. We're one out of the 34. We're in Novi, Michigan. We have 500 members. As I said, our members are all spinal cord injured and or spinal cord disease, such as MS, okay, ALS, and as I always try and tell people, our goal as an organization is to go out of business. And the reason I say that is they hopefully someday come up with a cure for spinal cord injury. But if you were to define us, as mission-wise, our main mission is to make sure our members get the benefits they're entitled to through the VA. And, that's a constant struggle to make sure that adequate funding is appropriated from Washington to make sure that the VAs have the resources they need to provide services not only to our members, but the veterans who served this country. And the other big issue for us is advocacy. Our members live in communities, and they want to be able to access those communities independently without architectural barriers.
Okay. Well, you probably said the whole show in just that few minutes. Okay. Well, you know what? I know that, you guys have, like you said, been around for a long time to support the paralyzed veterans and beyond. So you're not just serving the veterans themselves, but if a person has a condition, a health condition, such as spinal bifida or MS and everything, they can also come to PVA and ask for some support?
Oh, no question. I would say majority of our calls are from non-veterans.
Okay.
It's unfortunately you get people who don't have good insurance, and so they don't have the resources necessary to get the proper supports needed to, for example, be discharged from a hospital to go home. And so we have a loan closet to help those people. People have medical equipment that they no longer need, and so they will donate it to us. And then when people need this equipment, we get calls, and we will then give this stuff away for free. We've also created a partnership with the Masons where they have 170 lift aids. These are remote-controlled lift aids that normally would cost someone $5,500. I know my mother has one. It's a godsend because the traditional Hoyer lift was you would crank it, and it was not safe. The person would shift their weight, and the Hoyer lift could tilt and fall to the ground. This is mounted where it can go anywhere in the room. And so what we have done is when people no longer need their lift aid, we will take them repair them if necessary, and then give these to families for free that need them.
Well, now how does the families come in contact with you guys to know that you have these type of equipment?
Basically, all they got to do is call our number, it's 248-476-9000, or they can go to our website, michiganpva.org, and the information will be on our site they can get more information about that program and other types of programs that we offer.
Okay. Because a lot of times, if a person just is coming into an injury, such as something with the spinal cord, and they are new at becoming a wheelchair user, they're not too comfortable or knowledgeable in finding out where services are and what to do. First, they got to get over the depression and the anger part that, this is my life now.
Right.
So do you guys offer support groups and things like that so that, new people who are coming into this situation can prepare themselves?
Yeah, we one of the things that we've recently done, which I'm very proud of, is we're partnering with Rehab Institute of Michigan. They have a peer mentoring program, and what we're going to do is be the financial support. Because what they do, and I took part of a peer mentoring program when I was injured in 1986 I was at the University of Michigan Hospital, and they partnered with the Ann Arbor Center for Independent Living. And what the peer mentoring program is they take someone that has a similar injury, like spinal cord injury in my case, and they have that person who's been in a chair for maybe 4 or 5 years that understands that there is life with a disability. So they come up to the bedside, and it allows you to interact with that person one-on-one, to ask questions. Because when you lay in bed, you'll think of some of the worst scenarios, like how am I going to go shopping? How am I going to get gas? And as you find out after discharge, it's not that difficult. You're able to make it work. But at the time, you don't realize that. So they'll come to the bedside. They'll give you positive feedback, so you feel confident that when you are discharged, you can live successfully with any disability. And so with our partnership with REM, they're going to continue that program at REM, and we're going to provide the financial support for them to be able to do so.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, we're going to go to break, and ladies and gentlemen, we're going to come back with some more good information about Paralyzed Veterans of America. We'll be right back.
If a natural disaster happened and we were outside the home, we would probably all meet, I'll say, around the grocery store,
We would all meet at a bus stop. That is our meeting place.
Well, we would probably just meet out in front of the house.
We'd probably meet at our neighbor's house.
If you have no plan, then you can just plan what to do as it happens.
And welcome back to the second half of the show. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for those who are just now joining us, we have the executive director himself, Mike Harris, from the Michigan Paralyzed Veterans of America. And I'm asking questions that I know some of you are saying at home. You know what can we do as family members for persons who are wheelchair users or veterans who are coming home, going through some life changes? So we're going to go into detail. Mike, what can the general public do, or family members, what kind of support can they provide, or anything to do with legislation and things like that?
Well, basically, anytime you feel passionate about any legislative issue, it really helps for constituents to call their representatives and let them, voice their concerns. And just one of the issues that have really greatly impacted us, believe it or not, is they're talking about making drastic changes to the Michigan no-fault law. Most of our members that are non-service related were injured in automobile accidents in Michigan. And what the no-fault law does, and people don't realize really what the law is, what no-fault provides. It's more than just saying I have no one's at fault in a car accident. It's basically a lifetime benefit, so it pays for all my medical bills, all my durable medical equipment, housing to make it accessible, my car so I can get the adaptations. But they're talking about making radical changes to it that would limit the options that people have. For example, someone that is seriously injured in an auto accident gets the care needed 24/7, they're talking about limiting that to 8 hours a day. So there's been a grassroots effort to fight this, and so far we've been very successful. Because they have wanted to bring this legislation to the floor for a vote, but because of our efforts, they don't have the votes to pass it.
So do you need the public to support or continue to support this effort so that it
Well,
doesn't go through?
yeah, the longer the people let their representatives know their position on this issue, and the greater likelihood that this bill will not pass.
Okay.
And so this is true in any legislation. It's not only this one. That's why I use this legislation as an example that people have power, more power than they realize, and that when they voice their concerns to their representatives, they do get heard.
Okay, and I know you guys have worked on a particular component about at the pump. What is it at the gas
Well,
station?
we created a program called the Pump Guide, and
Okay.
basically it came out of frustration with me being out of the areas that I'm familiar with. I'm from Westland, but when I'm, for example, in Lansing, and all of a sudden I need gas, I don't know the particular gas stations in that area that provide full service. But you know, I found a station, and all of a sudden that station went from being full serve to self-serve overnight. And so I was driving back. I was able to find a station that could provide the service, you know, come out and pump it for me.
Okay.
But we figured there's got to be an easier way, so we met with the petroleum industry at the state level. The Department of Transportation, Secretary of State's been involved in it, and we created what's called the pumpguide.com. We send out a form to all the gas stations each year when it's time for them to renew their operating license, and 1,000 stations have signed on to the service, and they're willing to provide refueling assistance at self-serve prices. So if you go to the pumpguide.com, it will list all the stations and the times and days that they'll provide the service.
Okay.
And the other program we're involved in now, related to that, is we're trying to get them to install a product called the Fuel Call. And basically what this is a push button that you push once you drive up to the pump,
Okay.
and it lets the gas station attendant know inside that you need refueling assistance. So they will come out, then instead of having
Right.
to beep your horn or something, it's a more dignified way to communicate with the person.
So how's it
inside.
going so far? I mean,
We have 60 of those so far in the Detroit area,
Okay.
and my goal is to get one in every city.
makes
So
sense.
we're getting there.
Makes
We're
sense.
getting there, but it's not gone as quickly as
You
I
know,
would like.
when they changed over the situation where you can do it yourself,
Right.
and took out that extra added taste of, you know, someone coming out to do it for you. I think it was supposed to be like a safety factor or whatever, because things were happening at gas stations.
Right.
But in some states, there still are gas station attendants that they automatically pump your gas. You're not still supposed to do it yourself.
Right,
I know
New
that's
Jersey.
in New Jersey
Yeah.
for sure. And another thing, I think that when you make a change like that, you take away a job. So
Right.
they actually cut into someone's livelihood when they actually took away the person at the pump.
Yeah, they really didn't think about the inconvenience it was going to provide, or that it was going to create, I should say, for people that don't have the ability to get out of their car, and mobility issues like me being in a chair. I have to park so far away from the pump, so I have access to get the door open and get out of my car. And then the pumps are so high for some people because they're in the middle of an island.
Right.
So there are a lot of issues, and the federal law, the Americans with Disabilities Act, requires that gas station provide this service. We just haven't enforced it. You know, we're trying to get them to voluntarily do it.
Okay.
And that's why the Pump Guide has been a huge success.
It's
because
a nice catchy tune to the pump guide.
pumpguide.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's going on with the Detroit Riverwalk?
Well, the Riverwalk, the nice thing about that, and if you've not been down there, it's very nice. Before they started building it, you know, when we found out they were going to do this, and we do this with any type of major construction project going on in the area, is we'll try and get with them, sit down with them, and ask them if we can review drawings before they
Right.
build it. And they agreed to let us do that. So we reviewed their drawings, let them know, you know, to make sure they properly interpret the accessibility codes in the federal and state codes. And so we review the drawings. We'll find maybe mistakes that, you know, or ways of doing it better. And so they were very receptive to it. And so we did review the drawings.
You guys had something to do with the Tigers and the Lions?
Well, we did the same thing with them. In the late 90s, a lot of stadiums were being built throughout the country, and they were not being built correctly. And so when the Lions and Tigers announced they were going to be building these stadiums, we went to them before they built them and let them know this was what's going on in other cities, and let's prevent this from happening here.
Now, is it that the contractors don't really think or have in mind that they may have more than one person in a wheelchair to utilize this section of the stadiums?
Well, basically, it was the architects were not interpreting the codes properly. The biggest issue was line of sight. When people stand in front of you, you still should be able to see over them of what's going on the field. Okay. And what was happening, they would stand and you're looking right in the middle of their back. Right. And so that was the biggest issue, but there were other issues, so we were able to identify those issues to them. And so they went ahead and incorporated those. They allowed our architects at our national office to review the drawings before construction, and we identified mistakes. They corrected them, and the stadiums really came out very well. We had a similar situation with the University of Michigan. We ended up having, unfortunately, to sue them over the big house. They were going to renovate that, add seats and luxury boxes, but they weren't going to add wheelchair seating. And see, whenever you do renovation, that triggers higher accessibility requirements under the federal guidelines. Right. And so they weren't willing to do this, and so we ended up having to file a lawsuit in federal court. We were very fortunate to have Richard Bernstein represent us in the case, and he did it pro bono, and we were successful. We got almost 350 seats included from that settlement.
But isn't there money set aside for renovation for businesses so that they can utilize the money to help support in the renovation of, if they're going to be able to use the money towards accessibility?
Yep. Yeah, we partner with a group locally called Corp, and they have 20,000 members. They're small businesses. And so what we did was create a link to their website educating them on the tax incentives that are available at the federal level. And it's really a tax credit. So really it allows them to identify an issue like maybe their bathroom's not accessible, or they need a ramp to get into the facility, or a automatic door opener, their parking lot isn't striped properly. And they can use the tax credit really to pay for it. And it's almost a tax credit, it's like getting your money back.
Maybe a lot of people are just not knowledgeable in this information, and today's show, hopefully some of them will get a chance to hear what you say and take heed to the fact that, if you go to the website, you'll find out more about the laws, or if you even contact some of the agencies that you guys have worked with, you get more in detail.
Yeah. As I said, the goal is to try and get it right before they build it, but we also try to work with communities and businesses to make sure that if they're not sure what their obligation is, then we can educate them, because it benefits us if they get it right. Okay.
Well, we're going to take a break, and ladies and gentlemen, when we get back, once you get your pen and paper out so you can get the website and the phone number, we'll be right back.
Oh, my.
Targets by color. Odds are, if you're African American, you're twice as likely to suffer a stroke as white Americans. Know where you stand, because beating the odds isn't about winning, it's about living. Join the power to end stroke at strokeassociation.org.
And welcome back to the last half of our show. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just not joining us towards the end, this is what I want to say. Some of you are veterans yourselves, paralyzed veterans, returning home citizens, or family members of someone from the service. And we'd like to extend to you the website and the phone number so that you can contact PVA locally to find out what's going on in your community. On that note as well, this book here, Mike has brought us today, Accessible Housing. You say you guys have a way to let people know how to come in contact with getting the book?
Yeah, all they have to do is call us at 248-476-9000, and we'll direct them to not only that publication, but we have numerous publications.
Okay, okay. So a lot of times people are in their home, and the first thing they are struggling just to get around from the living room to the bedroom or the bedroom to the bathroom, even though they've lived in that house for numerous years before their disability took place. And now that they're in there, is there some things that they still can get adjusted in the home?
Yeah, if you're a veteran, for example, and let's say, unfortunately, you seriously have a serious medical condition that requires a use of a wheelchair, the VA has funding sources available to assist veterans so they can make their homes accessible, so they can live out of that home. And that book there is a good resource to identify how you can go about making your home accessible.
Okay, okay. So Mike, tell us about some of the benefits with that now that our servicemen and ladies are coming home. Is there anything that they should be looking for?
Well, every veteran, and I say this again, every veteran needs to call their veteran service organization. And a veteran service organization is a VFW, American Legion, or us, the Michigan Paralyzed Veterans of America, and find out what their benefits are, because every veteran qualifies for some type of benefit. Unfortunately, we're last in the country when it comes to getting benefits to our veterans, and we're trying to change that through educating the veterans that they play a role in this. They have to call us. They can't wait till something happens, because it takes a process to get enrolled into the VA system. And as you know, with the government, things don't happen quickly. So you want to do it before something happens. So, you just need your DD-214. If they don't have their DD-214, they can get a copy of that. That's why I just call us, and we'll get them to the right places that can get them their DD-214. But every veteran, for example, qualifies to be buried at the Great Lakes Cemetery out in Holly Township, which is in Oakland County.
Okay.
It's a beautiful site. The burial is free for the veteran and his spouse or her spouse, and it includes a marker. Because I've heard stories where the veteran has actually purchased his plot, not knowing that this program existed. And you hear the stories all the time where they'll spend money out of pocket to provide for care that the VA would in turn provide for them at free for charge.
Okay.
Yeah, for example, prescriptions are only $7, the co-pays.
Okay.
So with the cost of healthcare in this country, the VA, if you meet certain qualifications, you qualify for free medical care if you're a veteran.
So would you say that all veterans, not just disabled veterans, but should go and check and see what benefits they're eligible for? I mean, clearly there's something for everyone. It doesn't necessarily have to be medical benefits,
Right.
but it could be something of a...
Right, yeah, don't wait till something happens, because it's going to take a while for the process to kick in.
Okay.
You want to start now, have everything in place in case something unfortunate happens.
Okay.
And so I say don't wait, do it now, because it's going to take a while for the application process to kick in, once you fill out the proper forms. So it's critical that veterans start, because these are benefits they've earned through the service to their country.
So this is irregardless if you're a disabled veteran or not?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, okay.
That's correct.
A lot of people assume when they come home, okay, I got to go back to work, got to find me a place to live. Jobs may no longer exist. Home life has definitely changed. They just come back, and they're not really acclimated to what has happened for the length of time that they've been away. Okay, so what do you guys suggest that they do, or how do you help them out?
Well, basically, the unemployment rate is very high for returning veterans. I've heard between 20 and 25%. And I know President Obama recently introduced legislation that he signed that will give a huge tax credit to any employer that hires a vet. When you look at returning vets, the one thing that is different from the previous wars that we were in is vets are surviving injuries they never survived before. The wounded to kill ratio I heard recently was 35-1. So for every person that dies, 35 survive injuries, where in Vietnam it was 3-1. Wow. So it just shows you with the advancements in technology out in the field that these people are surviving these injuries. But with that comes a responsibility on behalf of our country and Americans to provide for their care. And part of that, too, is employment and making sure they're, when it comes to trying to find housing and things like that, that we're there for them.
That's true. That's true. I mean, this particular generation of servicemen will have, up to me, the royal carpet presented to them, where the past servicemen and ladies didn't get that opportunity, but they still should be able to benefit from today's turnaround.
Oh, I would agree. I would agree. I think we learned from the mistakes of the Vietnam War. So we're embracing the servicemen from Iraq and Afghanistan with open arms, and it should have been that way with Vietnam too.
Yes, yes. So can we get that website and phone number again?
Yeah, basically the website is www.michiganpva.org. Our number is 248-476-9000. And if I can leave one thing, April 12th, we're in Novi, Michigan. You can get the address from our website. We have an open house. That's where we invite the public to come out, see what we do, and it gives us a chance to thank them for their support. And we'd like to invite everyone out to that.
Can I come?
You're welcome.
Okay. And you guys have a job fair coming up.
There's a job fair for veterans coming up in June at Cobo Hall. It was just announced by Mayor Bing. I can get more details. I believe it's June 25th, but I don't quote me on that.
Okay.
But it's a huge undertaking. You're going to have all these employers from all over the country. They're recruiting veterans, so it's only for veterans.
That's a real good thing.
Yeah.
So the Veteran Job Fair, ladies and gentlemen, we don't know exact date, but we do know it's in June. Open house for PVA is
April 12th.
April 12th, okay.
Yes.
I think I'm going to come.
All right.
I know I'm going to come, okay. Well, Mike Harris, as usual, you come with a wealth of information, and I appreciate you coming. You're going to come back and see us again?
I would love to.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a question for Mike Harris and his crew, you can easily call them at their, what's the phone number?
248-476-9000.
Okay. And do you guys accept volunteers?
We definitely accept volunteers.
Okay. So somebody's going to use that number, okay?
Right.
If you have a question in reference to some services, please feel free to go to their website and find out what services you may be eligible for. Or if you don't see any, at least call the number and find out, if you can, if there's some services that relate to you or your family members. And I'm sure that you will find some. I'm your host, Marsha Florence, for Just Ask. What do I always say? If you know someone with a disability, or if you just have a general question, don't be afraid to ask. Just ask. And you can always contact us at 1-800-323-5336, 1-800-323-5336, or justasktalkshow.org. I'm your host, Marsha Florence. Thank you.